You've said that this new body of work introduces new vocabulary, especially around mime, black velvet painting, and this idea of paintomiming. As the one making the work, what unlocked this decision for you?
Well, I was trained as a painter originally in the 90s, and although I abandoned painting as a practice and got more into performance for a lot of different reasons, over time, I I've viewed reality itself as a painting more and more, and I've always like even in my most like creative and really out there performances in my head, I'm aware of the reference. So painting is like a basic reference in art that like it's helpful to understand it. You don't need to understand it, but it helped me to understand like reality as a painting, and also like I've picked up painting like multiple times in the past. Like I tried to black velvet paint like in 2012 and 13 before I joined Instagram, and I actually couldn't really do it. Like what's really happened in the last since last fall is an enormous technical break in terms of like my technique of like slowly making these like translucent layers. You have to layer it like really slowly to like peel away like the feel of the painting. Um, and yeah, I think you know, again, also mimes are also like a sort of form of pictorial space, like I will talk about further. And I think also too, like social media and the internet has democratized the language of painting. So what I rebelled from originally, like the sort of insularity of it and the sort of escapism of it, doesn't really exist anymore because like anyone can see a painting. It's not like a billionaire could like buy a painting and no one will see it again. The photograph of it exists all over the internet. In a sense, it's just as important, if not more important, than the original work itself. So I think like the way a painting operates has changed. I've changed. The world has changed, and it's time for PaintoMime to you know, make the stroke.
On that note, these paintings are made by PaintoMime, not you. So, who is PaintoMime?
Uh, PaintoMime is like a figment of my subconscious, and like I like to think of mimes as like sort of different than clowns in that they make pictorial space. So like to me, a mime is like it's a masterpiece without a frame. Like it's kind of a painting, like but not. It's almost like a figure that's come out of a painting into life, in a sense. And I think like that, like how art can like bounce off the canvas into life. Like the mimes are like loaded with that kind of unconscious language, um, and yeah, I think they're cool and sort of pictorial.
When Pantomime is making the work, where are you? David Henry Buddy Jr. Are you directing or witnessing?
I think PaintoMime is like me having an out of body experience, like while I'm painting, actually. And um, although I may not really wear like the look of PaintoMime while I'm painting, in my mind's eye, I become PaintoMime in order to go inside the painting. By being PaintoMime, like say in the performance at the gallery or like making appearances, I'm allowing the viewer to step inside the world of the painting. In a sense, like we are in a painting right now because PaintoMime is here. So I would say like PaintoMime is like is my subconscious acting out again and being is David Nobody Bad self.
You mentioned that you think the internet is predominantly the unconscious. What do you mean by that?
I think like the more that we create a sort of digital facade or mask of ourselves, the more like rational we get, like the more the unconscious like inevitably comes out. It's like the reptilian animal part of ourselves, our origins that essentially we haven't really spiritually resolved in a way. And like the more that you repress that, the more I think it comes out. So on the internet, I mean, in many different circumstances, I can feel myself like, say on Instagram where I have like 157,000 followers and like my videos go viral and I'm essentially in character on social media. I will get in there and interact with trolls and when I feel like it, because I feel like the call and response between the viewer and the artwork is like part of the process. But even myself, like I look back and I realize that I wrote something like that, like shows an unconscious truth about myself that I didn't realize. I feel like a lot of times when people are like just being keyboard warriors, they're not entirely in control of their dialogue. Like look at the president, for example. I mean, it's the internet is laden with the irrational, which is interesting because actually the tech and blockchain itself is like amazingly rational system, but like humanity is like completely irrational in a sense.
Is that about what people reveal online or what they don't realize they are expressing?
I'm more interested in what they don't realize that they're expressing. Probably. That's funny. I mean, we all like put our feet in our mouths. PaintoMime has certainly done that a lot in his life, and I think those are kind of like happy accidents in a way. It's something a creative person you could choose to pay attention to. For me, like I guess I grew up in a family where a lot of like weird stuff was going on. I'm not saying bad, but just like ridiculous, really absurdist. And I'm sort of accustomed to this language basically, so I sort of see. I guess I see it through that lens that I grew up with on the internet. And yeah, I think that there's a fine line between control and not control. It's all relative. I mean, here we are, like essentially on a spaceship, like flying through space. We don't have any idea what the fuck is going on. So like, I don't know. I think it's like good for artists to like, lift up rocks and look at what's underneath. We don't really know.
You made a distinction that mimes are silent and create optical illusions, almost like paintings do. Is the mime a model for how we communicate online?
I think the mime, well, like the philosopher Zizek, who I like a lot, said the mimes are the silent drives of the unconscious. A mime is a simplified version of the unconscious, and I think it's fun to be a mime on the internet.
Now, these paintings were made using black velvet. Why black velvet? What does the material allow you to access that something else wouldn't?
I think black velvet is like it really needs to be seen in person, which is why I'm doing this physical solo show. It doesn't really carry like over photographs quite as well as like my performances do, but the velvet itself has like this sort of dark, introspective like material force. Like on one hand, it's like black is considered like foreboding, but and on the other hand, like if you feel the velvet, it's like super soft, like as soft as a rabbit or a cat, basically. So it's an interesting headspace, I think, like to paint on, and like I feel maybe I need a little softness right now with everything going on, all the turbulence going on in the world. And I've always loved black velvet painting. Again, I grew up like in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, like looking at like crying clown paintings and other types of black velvet kitsch painting that was like really frowned upon, like by like art schools and the art world. But like I always thought that stuff was super funny and like awesome, like really creative. And I've attempted it multiple times, but I feel like it's now really worthy of a solo show because like I've really made a large technical and conceptual, like essentially the works that I'm showing now are an artistic quantum leap to where I was 10 years ago with it. So maybe I was ready to come back to one. It's one of my loves. In my life's work, I have many threads. There's probably about 10, and they kind of like they pop in and they phase in and out, and they're kind of all doing a dance together. And like in my head, I'm trying to like make it all come together into a retrospective. So Momo, whenever you're ready, I'm ready.
Earlier in your career, you were inserting yourself into systems of power and media, creating situations where people projected meaning onto what they were seeing. Does this work feel more like a continuation of that, just at a more internal level?
Sure. And again, I think like the painting and black velvet painting is highly introspective. It's much softer, but in the end, the work ends up basically like in galleries and on the internet. And I really think like because the internet surveils us so much, we deeply project ourselves into images. I mean, I don't really know the mechanics of how the paintings work yet, which is why I want to show it, because I'm not really getting the same call and response level like I do with the performance work. But I know from a lot of experience, like on Instagram, that like in my performances, the ones that go viral, and people are doom scrolling and they look at it, they're not seeing me, they see themselves. So like when I'm turned upside down with the Champagne Supernova piece owned by Coldy, thank you, dude. Um, uh, they don't see me in it; they see themselves in it. And either they like that or they don't. So I really think, honestly, like something about how the internet is like so pervasively surveilling us, like the human spirit turns around and like somehow mirrors it by projecting ourselves into images. So my theory is that like people will project themselves into the paintings in a very different way than they would have in the 1990s. But I don't know yet. In the show, I think will be a sociological exploration of that.
The show has a live performative aspect, and these works are also being released on SuperRare. What does it mean to turn something that feels this psychological and performative into an object that can be collected?
Well, I love the idea of like taking an idea that's like totally out there and totally absurd and completely challenging it and actually bringing it to the marketplace. I think like that's a really fucking cool place where art can go. And if I was a kid and I saw myself doing this right now, I'd be giving myself a high five. I'd be blown away, you know. So I think like taking it to SuperRare is a wonderful way to take work that like in the art world was like really was difficult to process because essentially people couldn't own it, you know. So there's that, and I do want to also say that the performative aspect will be me riding this crazy clown bike, all covered in smaller dipshit, spontaneous, lower price paintings, which will also be on SuperRare all over Manhattan. I'm going to ride the bike like right into the opening. It's all like going to come into one, and I think like Web3 can allow an artist to like work in a lot of different ways and kind of compress everything into a very actually free form presentation and medium. You can do a lot of different stuff and still be like, hey, this is an NFT that's for sale. You can own this. I don't know. I'm trying to explore like the freedoms that you can do with NFTs, not necessarily with the tech literally, but more like how creative can I be and still like make this work like and I have collectors, I have a market. I think like again the entrepreneurial aspect of like Fantastic Nobody, like my work, is also equally of interest to me. I love trying to see how the work like affects people and like how they connect with it, and I want to lift them up and provide some enlightenment. Art is my torch and music is my shield. It should like light the way into the future in darkness. And like I guess another thing about black velvet paintings I'll also add is that people say we're living in this dark enlightenment where like ignorance is basically taking over the narrative, and so I guess these are paintings for the dark enlightenment. Like I want to use the darkness but hold the torch of light.
If the internet is the unconscious, what does that say about who we are right now?
Well, I would say it's kind of a hot mess, right? I mean, but it sort of depends on your algorithm. Again, like the like Zuck and all these other billionaires want to keep you in your bubble, and I think a lot of people are kept where they're marketed to. Basically, I think it's important to go outside your bubble. I mean, that's why I like to jump between different scenes. The internet is fascinating. It's just like every genre of everything that ever could be is on there. Every type of category of person is there, and it's still a very new world, that we're living in. And yeah, I would say it's a hot mess, and I'm glad to. I think I don't like it when it's like a little too corporatized and like too sugar coated, and I think it's good for artists to like just basically disrupt in a playful and evocative and questioning way. Now, these are all things I do for the present, but there's no doubt that, and my work has shown over and over again, that there are deeper ideas even in the newer work that will be revealed over decades. Like some of my older pieces like predicted the future. You don't really know like how what you do now is going to be read like deep in the future. So whereas art always does reflect the present, and I'm reflecting the internet, like how it's going to be read in the future is like it's a time capsule of this time. People of the future, who knows how they'll be, what the lens they'll have to be looking at it with. But it's always an interesting experiment to see like how your work opens up in the future.
David Henry Nobody Jr.
That's me.
Tell
Thanks
everybody the details about the show.
The Adventures of PaintoMime, my first solo show of physical black velvet paintings, will open May 14th at Satellite Gallery on Broome Street in New York City from 6 to 10 p.m. There will be like large, dark paintings, which will be minted on SuperRare pretty soon. And then also the more playful side with the bike and the lower priced. The dipshits will be on the right wall, like more playful, basically. And the opening is definitely going to be a party. It's from 6 to 10, so come down and enjoy. I know like a lot of my friends will be like wearing face paint, probably like mime and clown. That's not required, but it's going to be a good time. So hope to see you there.
You want to take us out?
Huh?
You want to take us out?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Where's the harmonics? What did I do with it?
I'm thinking also I'll let you take the seat.
Oh, by myself?
Yeah.
Ready?